Hello and welcome to Produce Talks, the CPMA podcast, covering the current and emerging issues and latest news in the fresh fruit and vegetable industry. I'm your host, Ian Brody. Today's talk is on variety. We'll cover the innovations, the drivers, and the processes from concept to commercialization when it comes to offering new varieties, specifically looking at apples and grapes. Here we go. The concept for this episode all started with the much anticipated December launch of the Cosmic Crisp apple. As I was reading up on the new apple variety, the more I realized all the dynamic components to launching a new variety, going from conceptualization to commercialization. When you consider there are thousands of apples and grapes out there, there's lots to unpack when it comes to offering variety and making a new product stick. So later we'll chat with Mac Riggan from Chelan Fresh to talk apples, and Bill Poulos from Oppy to talk table grapes. We're going to start off first with Kate Evans from Washington State University and Kathryn Grandy from Proprietary Variety Management to talk about the launch of the Cosmic Crisp and look more broadly at the breeding processes and innovation behind developing a new variety. Kate and Kathryn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Ian.
Kathryn, I'm going to start off with you. Can you start off by talking about proprietary variety management and the role of PVM?
Back in about 2003, PVM was brought in to bid the commercialization of Cosmic Crisp, at the time WA 38. And we subsequently were granted the contract with WSU. What we do is we are a commercialization company. So we build the trademarks, not only in Washington State for WA 38, but globally around the world, and help get the plant PBRs or comparable in various countries around the world for trademark protection and plant rights protection. We go through the entire commercialization process from, starting at that point all the way through to executing a consumer marketing program. We conduct consumer focus groups, solidified naming of the apple, build the branding. We have a database system that tracks plantings and the grower billing and all aspects along the way.
Mm-hmm. Everything on the commercialization side.
Correct.
And when I mentioned to you how I wanted to talk about the breeding and innovation side of things, you said, well, we got to get Kate Evans in here. So thanks again, Kate, for joining. You are a professor and horticulturalist at Washington State University. I understand that you are responsible for overseeing the final stages of breeding and the release of the Cosmic Crisp.
So you're absolutely correct. I came into this process back in 2008. So that was when the apple that subsequently became named Cosmic Crisp was just moving into what we call the third phase of evaluation in the breeding program. The apple itself is a result of a really directed effort in terms of producing new apple varieties for Washington State. So it was the breeding program for apples started back in 1994 by Dr. Bruce Barrett. Bruce retired in 2008, which is when I came in and took over the process, but Bruce is still very involved with the release of this particular apple. The aim of the program, as I said, was to produce apples for this state that grow really well here in our conditions and that are available for our growers. And also, that will provide good, improved eating experiences for consumers. So that was our target, and I hope that with the Cosmic Crisp apple, that's what we've done.
What is this like for you? Do you feel like a proud mom, sending her kid off to college with the Cosmic Crisp, or I don't know, do you have a better metaphor for it?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, at most, stepmom.
Right.
Certainly it's really great. It makes us all in the program feel really proud that we've created this apple evaluated it, selected it from thousands of other potential new varieties, and it's now got to the point of it's going to be in consumers' hands really soon. So we all feel kind of proud, but maybe you'd have to go to Bruce Barrett to ask him if he feels like a proud parent.
Gotcha. Now, I want to just talk a little bit, going back to that timeline, even back to 1994, and then development, began back in 1997. Is that process and is that timeline typical for the launch of a new variety?
Yes. The program itself started in 1994, but the actual cross that created the seed that then ended up being the original WA38 tree was made in 1997, and it took us then 20-year timeline to get those first trees in a commercial planting. The first grower trees went out in 2017, and that, I would say, is a reasonably typical timeline for an apple variety getting to that point. And it takes a long time because you're dealing with a tree. Every time you propagate a tree, you've got to let that tree grow a woody structure that will then hold some fruit. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to do a lot of evaluation, very careful evaluation on this, and on every selection that comes out of the program in terms of how robust it is. Will it work for the grower? Is it a tree that they could work with? Will the fruit store well? Will it run on a commercial packing line? All those kind of things that we really needed to evaluate to try and take out some of the risk for the industry in terms of the huge investment that they've made in planting. And then obviously we wanted to make sure that it tasted great as far as the consumer was concerned. So all of these things really take time because you've got to have apples in order to do that kind of testing. So it is a relatively slow process, but I think that all of us who've been involved in it really feel as if we've done as good a job as we could in terms of evaluation and getting a pretty robust product out there into the market.
Can you speak a little bit more to, at a high level, how does breeding a new variety work?
That's a good question. So, fundamentally, we're talking sexual reproduction. And I mean, that's, kind of apples reproduce in the same way that many other things do. Mm-hmm. You have a male and a female parent. For us in breeding, we look to choose two parents that we think when combined together will produce offspring that have better quality traits than the two parents, because in the same way that when you have your two parents and you and your siblings, you've all inherited maternal and paternal DNA and genes, but you as siblings are all different. That all those genes are all mixed up in you and your siblings. It's the same with apple seeds as well. We choose two parents, and in this case, it was Enterprise as the maternal parent, and then Honeycrisp as the pollen parent. And it's very simple. It's just as transferring the pollen onto the stigmas of the Enterprise flower, then waiting for that fruit to develop and collecting the seeds from inside. So that's the sort of the sexual reproduction part of it, and the creation, if you like, of the new individuals, the new seedlings. And the process in the breeding program after that is all about evaluation and selection. And so at that point, we're dealing with thousands of seeds that then grow into individual trees, all different. We do selection where we're evaluating them for different characteristics, obviously fruit being principally the thing we're focusing on. And we select the best individuals to move into a second phase of selection. So we'll go from thousands to kind of tens of different ones. The neat thing about apple is that once you've made your original tree from a seed, you can then vegetatively propagate, which means that you can just take a bud from that original tree.
Right.
And you can put it onto a rootstock and you can make as many more as you want that are all identical. And that's how the industry works. Mm-hmm. It's all vegetatively propagated. And so that enables us to kind of replicate, make more trees, which enable us to see more fruit and do more evaluation. Mm-hmm. So that's fundamentally how it works.
Right. And I guess the detailed part of that would be the evaluation process, it sounds like.
Right. Yes. I mean, there's obviously a lot of thought initially about which two parents would you choose. What is it that what are you aiming for in the product at the end? But then once you've got that seed, then it's all really about really careful evaluation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's really interesting, especially when you think of how many apple varieties are out there. Kathryn, I'm going to flip things back to you. Can you talk a little bit about the launch of the Cosmic Crisp? Obviously, it hit shelves in December. This episode is going to be released right at the end of November. So, I mean, I guess we're talking next week now. So when we're talking about the launch of any new variety, I guess, what does that all entail, from that commercialization standpoint?
Well, Kate and Bruce worked on the breeding side. And then once we took on the project, we developed a relationship with Northwest Nurseries to propagate the trees and develop a database to take on the order system of trees. And then we began developing the licensing protocol of, how we're going to license and the parameters of that. And so in this scenario, our nurseries are licensed, the growers are licensed, and then our packer, shipper, and sales companies. So it's licensed all the way through and tracked on a database. That same database, which was developed by PVM, also provides a lot of information back to the growers and sales companies. But the sales companies then in that chain sell it to the retailers and ultimately to the consumers. So we have been working with WSU and WSU Extension on, field days and helping to facilitate research and supported by the industry, continuing research on the Cosmic Crisp, and then, educating growers, packers, shippers on things like quality standards. And mm-hmm. we had an industry representative group and that met often with people like Kate and Inez Hanrahan and other researchers that helped develop a starch chart and did a lot of research and gave us a lot of information on the WA38. Armed with that information, the industry group and PVM developed the quality standards, and we had a number of meetings to talk to our growers and packer shippers about that, because we wanted to really bring the best apple to market. Also, a marketing industry advisory group that, we ask about packaging and marketing and, what sort of needs they're going to have to take this to market, because there are 23 sales companies in the state, and they are the ones that are working with the retailers and on one side and the packer shippers on the other, and actually doing the distribution. So we together made a lot of decisions collectively, and then my team has been building packaging design, brand strategy, PR with media, some retail signage and displays and working trade shows. Mm-hmm. So it's the full gamut. We're getting ready to launch in December 1st, which is incredibly exciting.
Yeah. And so it's really interesting to hear that it's a collaborative approach, right? There's so many moving pieces there. with WSU, with the sellers, with the growers. And so it's really interesting to hear that because there's so many moving pieces and so many different parties, that there is that collaborative approach. And it goes beyond just a contract or just a license.
We've had a tremendous time the last few years, getting together and making a plan to educate everyone on WA38 and talk about the results we've had from consumer focus groups or taste testing and marketing data and, getting ready for this day. And, it has been very cooperative, very collaborative. And I can't name anybody that's not excited about this apple. It's really the first for Washington State to have our own apple. And it's an amazing apple as well. So it's been a lot of work for everyone, and I truly believe it's going to be very successful.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to try it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I guess I also read that distribution might be a little bit limited in Canada for the first few months, but certainly going to keep an eye on it for it to come on the shelves. Talking again more generally about variety itself, it seems like there's been an increased pursuit for new varieties. What are the drivers behind pursuing a new variety, and why do you think there has been sort of this wider focus, in the apple world, in the grape world, and so on, for more variety? Yeah,
so I think a lot of that is it's consumer driven, and I think that really is the mindset of the modern consumer, is that they're excited by new products. As a consumer, you want a new experience. You want to try something different. And I think we're also moving very rapidly into being a whole load of foodies. People are much more aware about what they're eating and getting a good eating experience. And, the nice thing about being in the fruit world is, of course, what we're doing is we're producing a healthy product as well. And so when you add that in, it's kind of a win-win, right? It's a healthy product. So consumers want to eat more because they know it's good for them. And it's a great eating experience as well. And that added excitement of it's something new. So there's that angle, but also because of that, it's a great apple for growers. I think that's really why we've seen all these new apples come out there, because if there's consumer pull, then the grower is going to make more money on it. I mean, fundamentally, we're talking, it's a business. And so, if the consumer is not willing to pay a little bit more for that new product, then those growers are not going to stay in business because they're not making enough money to cover the cost of production of some of the older varieties that they're currently growing.
Consumer tastes have really been changing too. And like Kate mentioned, foodies, and it seems that they want a more complex flavor. They want the texture and the juiciness and that, burst of sweet and maybe a little tart in there. And so I think that's really driven it. And, retail has also, wanted something unique. And initially, every apple company went out and found 1, 2, 3 kinds of apples that they felt were very delicious, very good to grow. But it's very difficult for one or a few collectively to grow enough to cover the market in the U.S. And so, with Cosmic Crisp, we have volume coming, which is really addresses the issue with consumer, because if it is becomes such a popular apple with that volume coming from Washington State, we can cover a lot of the country with Cosmic Crisp deliveries.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kate and Kathryn. I really appreciate your time. And obviously it's really exciting. So thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsor, Nature Fresh Farms.
Hello, everyone, it's Sarah from Nature Fresh Farms bringing seasoned greetings along with great new recipes to try during the holidays. At Nature Fresh Farms, we use innovation in every aspect of our operations, from growing to packaging to in the kitchen. Our team is always searching for new ways to incorporate our selection of vegetables with fruit favorites for delicious eats. Be sure to check out all our new recipes at naturefresh.ca/recipes.
Next up is Mac Riggan, Director of Marketing at Chelan Fresh. Mac, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So can you start off by talking a little bit about Chelan Fresh and your role there?
So Chelan Fresh is a marketing agency that is owned by a grower base up in that branches from as far south as Yakima up to the Canadian border. We have a combination of family-owned farms. They're all family-owned farms, but some of the organizations are independently owned by a family, and then one of them is a co-op, actually Chelan Fruit, and it happens to be the largest apple cooperative in existence still in the world. So we produce a lot of apples, pears, and cherries. We're probably the largest cherry shipper in the United States, and so we take that responsibility to try to be leaders in our field. I hold the position of Director of Marketing at the company, and I wear a lot of different hats, but primarily I'm just about driving awareness of our company, our uniqueness, and all the special things that we do there. For us, we have the Koru apple, the Dazzle apple, and 2 red flesh varieties, and then adding to that, we have the Sugar Bee and Rocket, and we also have a proprietary cherry called the Rondo Ruby. And what drives us to be there is we're trying to decommoditize our offering.
Talking about, the Sugar Bee, the Rocket, what makes those varieties particularly unique?
Well, the Sugar Bee, it's a Honeycrisp open cross, meaning that it was blossom on a Honeycrisp tree, was pollinated by a bee from pollen from another tree of unknown origin. And so we were lucky enough to be working with a breeder that brought it to us. We tested it for years and years, found that it was eating good. We found that it was grower friendly and that you could pack it and that it would store well. And so those were all things that needed to be met, those criteria. And so we brought it on board, and this is our 3rd year of having commercial volume. And it just comes down to having a really good eating quality, crispiness, flavor, all of it, juiciness, thin skin. And so when you get all of that combined and customers have that great experience, then the word of mouth just drives demand and it does very well. The Koru apple is another good apple out of New Zealand. It's a cross between a Fuji and a Braeburn. And so it has the best of those qualities, and it's a much denser apple and offers a unique eating experience separate from the Honeycrisp, but equally good for people that have that sort of palate. What's really unique about the Rocket apple is that it is grown small. It naturally produces itself small on the tree, and unlike other small apples, which are just kind of the derivatives that the tree puts off on a typical variety, the Rocket grows small and it eats like a big apple. So it's a perfect snack-sized apple. It offers portability. It's probably one of the first apples that really lends itself to the convenience sector in that it's very rugged, it's very hardy, it has great shelf life, it's the perfect size to snack on. Most importantly, it's extremely consistent. And that's what people in the snack category thrive on. If you buy a bag of chips or a candy bar or M&Ms, it's always the same.
Right.
And that predictability is what makes people just walking in a hurry buy it because they know what they got. So that's been the challenge of the fruit industry, breaking in the convenience sector when you often don't have a good cold chain. Rocket fits that groove. So we're really excited about what we're going to be able to do with that small apple.
That's really interesting. So from the grower's perspective, what does that process look like? From conceptualizing a new variety, breeding it, commercializing it. There certainly are a lot of steps there.
Yeah, so the first step is to find an apple that customers really like. If you don't have that, there's no point in growing it. And so I kind of alluded to earlier, then step 2 is how grower friendly is it? Does it produce well? Does it grow within a nice bell-shaped curve, or does it grow a bunch of pumpkin size or a bunch of super small ones that don't taste good? Does it bear consistently year to year? Does it color up pretty uniformly so you don't have to pick it multiple times? So all those lend itself to whether it's grower friendly or not. So once the consumer likes it, then the grower likes it, then you got to decide the people that are going to pack it. Does it bruise real easy? If not, that's good. Does it store well, meaning that you can lengthen the window, therefore kind of manipulating that supply-demand curve? If you have an apple that doesn't store well, you've got to force all that volume into a short window. So when it really stores well, it just lends itself to a whole lot more opportunity and profitability. And then lastly, when you put it out there, does it meet the customer's expectations when you put it out on a wider format? Does it do well in export markets? Does it do globally across the United States? Because people have different tastes from here to the Southeast to New York. So once you've met all those parameters, then it's worth sticking a tree in the ground. And the last thing a grower has to also remember is that not all apples grow the same everywhere. Apples tend to be very site-specific. When you look at Honeycrisp, they grow well up in Nova Scotia. They grow well in cooler regions in Washington. If you have a north-facing slope that doesn't get as much hot sun, they tend to do a little better. So apples by these new varieties are a little temperamental in that you just can't plant them anywhere. You need to be smart about where you plant them if you want to get the absolute best piece of product.
Are there any specific challenges, that come to mind when launching a new variety?
So last part I should talk to you about is the retail part. Retailers are just inundated these days with new everything. I mean, 30 years ago, you might have had 300 items in a produce department. Now there's 600. Apples kind of were that year-round item along with bananas and citrus that really were king. Now, when someone goes into a store, there's a real wide array. Berries are almost universally non-seasonal anymore. Mangoes, all kinds of tropical fruits. So apples are competing with shelf space and consumers' plate and consumers' share of mouth. I mean, you have to deliver a good eating piece of fruit or it's just not going to carry the day. So retailers are always looking for that point of differentiation, yet they don't want to risk losing a bunch of money bringing in a new apple that doesn't sell. And typically when we have a new apple, our upfront costs are high, so we're asking a lot of money for what's basically a mystery. Yeah. So the challenge is with our low margin business, it's a challenge to come up with all the marketing money to drive that awareness. We don't have money for TV ads and all that. And demos in a store are $200 a demo. So just multiply that over a couple thousand stores, you can see it gets expensive quick. And so there's a challenge in developing that, and that driver and that awareness and getting that fruit in people's mouths. And so, we have a saying that it's marketing's job here to get the first sale, but the apple has to get the second sale. You want to make sure you have a good promotion, you got consistent product, and then if you can get a retailer to buy into supporting you, and if they take a little ownership, maybe they'll put an ad in the paper, or they'll drive awareness on their social media, or they'll put it right up front with people come in the store with a big display, lots of signage. Someone will do their own static demos. We've had retailers that allowed us to put shirts in their employees. So all through the store, they saw Sugar Bee shirts. They had the Sugar Bee name all over a bunch of billboards in their market area. So those were some things that we're just consistently working with retailers because they know customers better than anybody. And when you can get a good relationship with them, it really helps to drive that awareness and that momentum. It's all about lifting that apple off the ground, making sure you can. The criteria for selecting an apple are the same no matter what country you're in. And anymore, I think the future is going to be club apples. I just think that's where growers are going to say, we're not going to just have an open variety that anybody and everybody can plant, because then the competitive advantage is always the lowest cost producer.
Yeah, I've actually read a couple articles that, suggest that the apple market is a little bit saturated. And even when it comes to varieties, I mean, there's so many varieties out there.
Yeah, you get choice anxiety. Can you imagine going in and you see 36 apple varieties? You're thinking, which one do I buy?
Right.
like looking at a wine rack, right? I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exciting in one way, but we have to realize that it's everybody's responsibility, the grower, the shipper, and the retailer, to educate consumers. Got to support it with a demo or some kind of introductory pricing so that you can lower that risk of entry. Once they taste it and they like it, then the apple's demand will determine the price.
Right. Well, that's it's really interesting. It's really great insight, Mac. I definitely appreciate you joining the podcast.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Last up, I wanted to expand the conversation to also talk about table grape varieties. My next guest is Bill Poulos, Director of Import Grapes and Stone Fruit at Oppy. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Can you start off, Bill, by talking a little bit about your role at Oppy and the grape varieties that Oppy imports and distributes?
My role at Oppenheim, I'm the director, as my title implies, the import grapes and stone fruit. So I'm in charge of basically that part of the grape category. It starts usually about now in November, and it runs through the end of May. Predominantly 98% of our volume is either from Peru or Chile. And I'm the one that puts the programs together along with our offices in Santiago and Lima, and then also how it works with our sales team up here to put together sales plans to help execute these. In terms of varieties, boy, we would probably have, I would say the traditional varieties, we would probably still be bringing in about 8 to 10 of those. The new varieties have really mushroomed through the years. Mm-hmm. I think that you could probably see between Peru and Chile, you could see over 20 different new varieties across our inventory between now and, let's say, the end of April.
Today, we're really focusing on varieties specifically and the drivers, sure, the innovation behind variety. What would you say are the drivers or reasons behind offering a variety of grape flavors and types? Like, why is that so important?
I think it's important because the last few years, most of the data that we have found is that the grape category, even though it continues to be a large factor in the produce section, has sort of stagnated. And in my opinion, I think we need a refresh. I think that we need to give the retailer a better red and green. People usually, retailers sell as red grapes, green grapes, and then maybe black grapes, and then they may use novelty grapes. I think we need to give them a better red and green and black grape to sell day to day. And also these novelty grapes are things that drive people to the produce section and particularly the grape section. So I think we need a refresh.
For sure. So it's about driving consumer demand.
Yes. Not only are these new varieties, they look better, they taste better, but in fact, they give better yields to the growers. So they're easier. Once you get them going, you can get more boxes per acre or hectares. Mm-hmm. So in the long run, they're going to be more economical too.
Now, that kind of leads into one of my next questions. With that relationship with the grower, if they're in Peru or Chile or wherever, how involved are you or a distributor or an importer in the development process, sure, in the breeding process of a new variety or of a new product?
Well, I'm not a lab guy or an agronomist. Mine is just more giving input. In the last few years, we were very adamant with our growers in Chile, not as much in Peru because it was more of a fledgling industry, that they needed to come out with a better red and green grape, one that tasted better, and one had better size, that all the retailers were upgrading their specs in the United States, and the varieties that traditionally we were bringing in from Peru and Chile, it was getting more difficult in order to make the average retailer spec in terms of size and also eating experience. So mm-hmm. it was more just transmitting what the retailers up here are saying, and what we are seeing up here from some of the varieties, new varieties that are working, give that as hints. Maybe they get involved with those varieties, or if they can find something that maybe from another breeder that's close to that variety, something like that. We're not actually in the, we're not in the laboratory, coming
right.
out, we're in the develop these. We'll leave those to the breeders. Like we say, let the singers sing and let the dancers dance. But I think we can give some good insight to our growers, what our ultimate customers want up here.
Right. Yeah. It's really interesting business relationship because, I mean, like, you guys know what the demand is from retailers and from consumers, and you have to, I guess, take that back.
Yes, and just mentioning that it's changing. That's the one thing. It seems like the grape section, or what kind of grapes that people have on their supply, on their stands, it's a source of pride for most of the retailers in North America, and they pride themselves on having the extra large berries or something that really stands out and also eats very good. So grapes are one of the things in the produce section that people really think they can make a difference. And if you give them less than what they want on their spec, you run the risk of being put on the shelf.
Now, are there any specific challenges or like, do you have any specific examples of what that working relationship is like, when launching a new variety?
Well, when you launch it the first couple of years, usually the yield isn't what you want to be. It's probably not the first year that they export it. Some of these varieties have been not the sizing that you get from the first couple picks, et cetera. It usually gets better after you've been, after it comes into production 2 or 3 years. Sometimes I think that our growers have, they've heard some of the success stories for all these new varieties, and I think in the last couple of years they've been a little bit disappointed that what some of the FOBs we were getting 5 or 6 years ago, as opposed to where the reality is these days, as more new varieties come to market, that the premium or the high FOBs aren't as much as they were in the previous years when there was more of a scarcity in new varieties. But like I tell the growers, going forward, the new varieties are going to become more mainstream, and the premium is going to be getting, the business.
So when it comes to Oppy grape varieties specifically, what's new in the Oppy world?
We're very excited. Over the summer here, we were appointed a licensee of Sunworld as one of their marketers for North America for the South American grapes, and also out of South Africa. So we're very excited. They have some very good varieties, and this is going to be our first year marketing them. So we're very eager to get them into our customers' hands. Several of our growers are going to be really expanding into the Sunworld line in the next few years, so we're excited we're going to be able to grow with those growers. And we've had some positive response from some of our retailers that are very anxious and very happy that Oppenheimer is going to be also marketing the Sunworld grapes this year, along with some of the other nurseries.
Well, that's definitely very exciting.
Yes.
Well, listen, Bill, I wanted to thank you so much for your time.
Take care.
Big thank you again to all our guests for joining me on this episode. A reminder to check out CPMA/education to learn more about our e-learning courses, Produce Basics and Produce Essentials. Keep up to date with CPMA by following us on Twitter and LinkedIn, and click that subscribe button for Produce Talks on iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Until next time, fill half your plate with fruits and veggies, continue to seek out new knowledge, and basically never stop growing.